Okay, I'm going to show you where to put things in an entity relationship diagram, where your primary and foreign keys go and what your relationships look like. Here's an example. Each customer lives in one city, but a city can have many customers in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab two entities and put them here because I'm going to need these. But before I do that, I'm going to also write out the two entities. It's city and customers. So what you have to do is you have to read the preamble, the business rule, which it's called. Each customer lives in one city. So what happens is the one is closest to the city in the actual description. So you'll put a 1 here, and then, but a city can have many customers in it, so you put the M here. When you're designing your database, you put the two entities up on your Visio screen. And then you would go city ID, customer ID. Okay, so each table should have its own primary key. And what you do now is you look at this little one-to-many, and you can see that the M is under the customer side. And the rule is the foreign key goes on the many side of the relationship. So that means that the foreign key city ID would go on the customer side. And then what you do is, and I'm going to make this bigger, then what you do is you would right click on that and go set foreign key. Okay, so now you have the keys all defined between this relationship. The next thing you would do is you would take this relationship line. I like to make it a straight connector just because I find it goes better. And I'm going to format it, right click on it and format it till I go to line. And then I'm going to make it 2 points. And I'm going to use a verb phrase, lives in. Okay. So the rule is that the foreign key goes on the many side of the relationship, or to say that backwards, the many side of the relationship goes on the foreign key side of the relationship, and the foreign key side is the customer side. So I take that and so kiss up against the edge of it. And then I go across here, touch the edge of it as well, so that it lights up green. And then we have the relationship established. After that, you would then put in what are called a non-key columns, which are just would be, you know, the city name, maybe the city population, I don't know, whatever you want to store about the city. And in here you would have the customer last name, the customer first name, the customer street, city zip, etc. Okay, so that's how you do it. The key is to, when you read the business rule up here, that you type out the two entities, and then you take the cardinality, it's called, or the number that is closest to that entity name, and you put it right underneath that entity, and then that helps you know whether it's one to many or many to one, etc. Then you take your diagram, create the two entities, give them primary keys, and then you put the foreign key on the table that has the M under it, and then that's how you get your database designed properly. Let's try another example. I've got another one here that we'll do. Each student has one advisor, but an advisor has many students. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to type out advisor, because that's the first entity mentioned, and students is the second entity mentioned. And you can see the 1 is closest to the advisor. So I put the 1 underneath advisor. And then the students has the many closest to it. See, this many is close to the word students. Okay, so that allows me to then go ahead and design this database. Advisor, students. And then I make sure that there is an advisor ID and a student ID. And then what you do is you look where the M is. In this case, the M was under the students. Now, it doesn't always, in these two examples, the M was on the right and the 1 was on the left. The way it's worded could have been, an advisor has many students and the student has one advisor, in which case it would have been reversed. But there would have still been the M under students and the 1 under advisor, but it would have said many to 1, and then you would have had to move your entities around to be consistent. But it's just so you know that many isn't always on the right. It depends on how the business rule is worded. So I have these two. We have advisor and students in the same position they are in my written relationship above. And then the foreign key goes on the many side of the relationship. So I would go advisor ID, and that would be right click, set it as a foreign key. That should say advisor ID. And then I'm going to grab a relationship line, right click on it to make it straight, right click it again to allow me to format it. Up pops the line, go to the line setting, and then increase this to 2 point. And then I'm going to put a verb phrase here of advises. And just so you can see everything well, I'm going to increase it so it's bigger. And then I know that the many is on the foreign key side, so I take the crow's foot and I put it on the foreign key. I take the 1 and I put it on the other table, and there you go. It's done. Okay? So that is how you know where to put everything in a one-to-many or many-to-one relationship. Now the next relationship we'll look at is many-to-many. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert a text box and make it horizontal. And I'm going to grab my next problem. Each child can have many mothers, biological, surrogate, adoptive, and each mother can have many children. Okay, so that's a many-to-many relationship. So again, what we have to do is we have to then type out the two entities here first, and we're going to have each child can have many mothers. So many is closest to mothers, so I'm going to go many, and each mother can have many children, so I'm going to put an M there as well. Okay, many-to-many relationships, you cannot do this. Go to child. Well, you can do this much. Go to child ID, you can do this. In fact, you must do this. And I'm going to grab mother ID. You need the primary key in each of these two tables. What you cannot do is take a relationship line like this. You can't take that and just join it like this. Oops. You can't just go from here to there like that. That's wrong, because you don't know which child goes with which mother if you do it that way. The standard way you join many-to-many relationships is you put an associative entity or junction table in the middle of the other two tables, and you normally mash it up unless as child mother, unless it represents some other, like a legal document or something else, like we saw in the order products database we do in this class, that the order products entity is really the order line in the invoice. But for now, child mother is fine. And we go child ID and mother ID. And set that as a primary key. And now we know that what happens is these child mothers table, this is where these two keys here are together, they form a primary key. You mash them up. So if it was child 1 and mother 3, it would be, the primary key would be 13. But these are on the many side of the relationship. This child mother has a many to one relationship with mother and a many to one with child. So these also have to be set here as foreign keys as well, individually. There we go. And it's always this way. The junction table has together these form are the primary key, child ID and mother ID, and individually they're foreign keys. Then what you need to do is take a relationship line. Whoa, I think I grabbed the wrong thing. Relationship. Right click, straight connector. And then what we do is we take the many and put it right here. Take the 1, put it there. Generally I use has as the verb phrase for junction tables. Let's make this bigger so you can see it. And then I'm going to grab this and copy it. And the many goes on the junction table side here as well. And there you go. You have the relationship between child and mother resolved with an associative entity or a junction table in the center. Okay, and that's how you do many-to-many relationships right there. And I've got one more example of many-to-many just to bring this home. So we go insert, text box. And I'm going to grab, each order can have many products and each product can appear on many orders. Okay, this is a many-to-many relationship. First of all, we pull down the entities, and we go order, and then we go products. Why that's coming up blue is beyond me. Okay, it says each order can have many products. So you go to M next to products, and each product can appear on many orders. So you have a many-to-many relationship there. In order to create this relationship, you use the same formula we did on the previous page. First of all, we would have product right here. We would go product ID. We would then also take another entity and put it way over here for orders. Order ID. Then we need the order products table in the center. See if I can make this a little, I guess it won't let, oh yeah, it will. Make this smaller too. Make this smaller. Okay, this would say order products, and in certain spots you might see this called order line is another word, because in real life this represents what would go on the order detail for an invoice you were making up. So I'm going to call it order line, but order product also works okay. And then you put the primary key of the first table, orders, in there, and the primary key of the other table, products. And together these form the primary key of the junction table. And then then individually they represent foreign keys pointing to the appropriate order and product to its left or right. Then we take the relationship line, right click on it, make it a straight connector, get 2 point, and use the has verb phrase. And then as usual, the many side goes on the many side of the relationship goes on what caused that? The many side of the relationship goes on the order line table, and the one side goes here on the product table. And I'm going to take a copy of that, paste it down here, and the same thing happens with this other table. Whoops. You want to go to the edge until it lights up green. There you go. Go to the other side till it lights up green, and there you go. You've got the table joined in a many-to-many relationship. Of course, you have to add your non-key columns, but you have that properly designed, and it's the same formula where the junction table has both primary keys and foreign keys in it, that the order ID and the products ID are the primary keys taken from the other tables, and you leave it at that. And then the many side always touches the edge of the junction table. Okay, so that's how you do many-to-many relationships in Visio.